question a surprising number of the people I work with don't pay enough attention to. And I want to introduce some of the problems with it. Imagine you're working for a startup. Okay, it's found a new potential market of kind of very self-centered people who are new to social media, and so it sees a great opportunity to build a new product, which is Twitter for cats. Okay, and the founder, that's okay. The founder has a really, really strong idea of what their customer is about. That's the customer they're focused on. They think that they have successfully communicated that to the team. Unfortunately, once you dig into things, you discover that the developers think the customer is like that, and the designers think the customer is like that. And for some reason, the sales and marketing team think the customer is like that. And you have all these people pulling the product and the features that are being requested, the experiments that are delivering in all kind of new expert contexts in different directions. And you end up with a very unhappy customer once you finally deliver. Because you are a long way away from having a common understanding and a common direction for the team in how they approach the stuff that they deliver to their customers. Now, those in the UX world, hands up if you're a UX-ish person. Yay! I might know you later, sorry. There's a standard answer to that in the UX tool. It's persona. Which is a term that's often misused. The way I usually summarize them is they are research-based archetypes of your customer. Okay, the key words there are research-based, i.e. we didn't just make shit up. We actually went out and talked to lots of customers. Okay, and we spent time with them. We did things like user interviews, observations, surveys. Maybe we tried some little bits of prototyping with them so we could understand their problem domain more. Okay, so we spent a lot of time with our customers. And that's often done by a separate research group or a separate user researcher. Sometimes it's work that a company will outsource to a specialist user research agency. Okay? And after they've gone away and done all their looking and talking and interacting and learning from customers, they'll go away and think about it for them, as it were. They will do their, the analysis and synthesis of all this wonderful information that they're absorbing from their customers. They will get through a metric shed load of Post-it notes and will have a good solid understanding of the way the customer behaves, the customer pain points and gain points, and all those sorts of things. And from that body of research and that work, analysis and synthesis, they'll produce many artifacts, deliverables. Some of those are things like customer journey maps showing how a customer uses it. And some of those things are things that are called persona descriptions, things that kind of look like this. You have a happy, smiley person, often some ghastly stock photo from somewhere. You have some descriptive text that describes what that person is like, what their pain points and gain points are, and some kind of stuff about the primary use cases and goals. And the format differs, but what you have is a strong, singular, easily absorbed description of this is what our customer is. Okay, and this then becomes something that is much easier for the entire team. Not just the developers, the other designers, the founders, because there's often confusion there between what the founders think the customer is like and what they're actually like. Marketing, sales, everyone. So you move from that to that. Okay, you have alignment, which is one of the massive key benefits of doing its own work. You also have, in that persona description, you have a really nice summary of the mass of research, which most people won't see, because it's not relevant to their work directly. You don't want to see transcripts of, a dozen hours of user interviewing, or you don't want to look at every bit of, analysis synthesis work. You want something that you can, get a handle on and move on. It helps us get empathy for our customers. We can put ourselves in their shoes a little bit more. We can understand their point of view more directly. We can go, what would the cat's like? We know from going to talk to lots of cats that, we can, they like warm places and they like high places, and that gives us opportunities to, think up new product ideas. And I still can't believe that this is a real thing. But it allows you to think of new opportunities and new places. It's a generative thing as well as a kind of evaluative thing, which hopefully leads us to happy customers. So, what's the problem? Why isn't everyone using personas in a wonderful way? Well, Agile came along, which is awesome, by the way, just in case people are unclear. And we had, with Agile teams, a very tight focus on learning from incremental delivery of product. That was the stuff that we talked about in the Agile process. We are kind of delivering value with increments of software. So how do you map that kind of incremental work with the more traditional kind of phased approach to doing a bunch of research, doing a bunch of analysis, and deliver this thing to the team? Okay. How do personas work with more lean startup-y type things, where something we acknowledge if we're taking that approach is that we have an incomplete understanding of our product and our customers at the start. We are looking for problem-solution fit, product-market fit. We are trying to discover who our customers are and what they want at the same time. And we're doing that in a rapid experimental way. And again, how does that phased approach to kind of developing models of our customers work? Where you are spending, it's a pain in the bottom if you spend weeks or months doing this user research and then come back to the client who then says, we've done a market here since then, and we're now talking to this different group of people. That kind of timescale doesn't work with the timescale approach to the research individuals. And there's the UX, and there's whatever's going to come next. There is this focus, and it's a good, appropriate, and effective focus on tight feedback loops that deliver learning to us quickly that we can use effectively with the products or the prototypes or the experiments that we need to do. And that phased approach doesn't work well with that for a few reasons. The biggest one that I've seen is that it's presented as truth. That this is who our customers are. Whereas what it often is really, this is our best guess to what our customers are. We've got about 80% certain that these are what our customers are like and what our pain points are. And we learn new things as we go. But because the personas never get updated, we either make incorrect assumptions, because that actually isn't our customer, or our customers change over time. There's this large upfront investment of time and money, which is hard to convince people who are new to user research to do. Yes, I want to go talk to customers and write that up for a month, and then I'll deliver a few things to you. It's a tough pitch, especially if the organisation is new to user research work, or if you don't have many user researchers, or if you have to, buy in extra resources from an external agency. Doing those things is hard. Even if it delivers value, the convincing process is difficult. You need a fairly good grasp of your market. Like I said, if you go research this group of people, then suddenly you start developing for a different group of people, then you're focused on pupils, and then suddenly you see an opportunity, and then you're focused on teachers. Those big chunks of work don't work well with that approach. And the personas often stay fixed, even when people change over time, or products entering the market change. My favourite example of this is I've worked with a telecoms company who did really, really good, solid user research. It was immaculate. It was a beautiful case study of how their customers use mobile devices. And they were using this to make decisions on how they develop for mobile in their ecosystem, which is all very good. Unfortunately, that user research had been done 18 months before the iPhone had launched. And the time now was 18 months after the iPhone had launched. And in the last 2 or 3 years, the world had changed. People's expectations of what mobile devices did or were capable of had changed. And they should have been planning for, Netflix on the phone when they were still in the mindset of, people old enough here to go, wow, things like that. There's this lovely quote from Jared Spall, where he talks about personas are to persona descriptions as vacations are to souvenir picture. When you go on holiday and come back with your snapshot photo, that tells you a lot. That will bring back to you immediate memories of the holiday and what that was like, and the good things and the bad things, and that's a wonderful thing. You show that to somebody else, and they see a picture of you on the beach. And those are two very different things. A lot of the value that comes out of doing the research work for building persona is in the work itself. It's in the experience of getting to a place where you can build the persona and describe the person, rather than just in that final artifact and delivery. That final artifact is still really useful. You can look at it and go, yeah, that holiday was awesome because of X, Y, and Z. And that brings all those things back. But it's an aid memoir rather than a thing that you can use to communicate all those experiences to somebody else. Now, I'm just going to talk about, this is a slightly fictionalized example because I signed a very scary NDA. But a while ago, we were working with a large company on an internal product aimed at their kind of VP level-ish group in sales. And we ended up with Sam Boston as a sort of persona. They were very kind of alpha male-ish behavior, kind of monkey hands, shouting on the phone. And it was the stereotype, it was amusing. But anyway, a problem we saw with them was that they spent a chunk of time on the phone every quarter with their minions to get kind of feedback statistics and information, so they could then turn these into pretty graphs and make strategic decisions and compensation decisions. And they were literally kind of on the phone nagging people, using their kind of shouting powers of persuasion to get this information out of the people they talked to. This was sucking up their valuable time. They had very expensive time. And so there's an obvious product there. This is just collecting information. You can write naggy messages and all that sort of thing. And that would have been kind of the traditional user research delivery. You go, there's this kind of person, there's these kind of pain points, there's a customer journey here, you can automate this, go build a product. What we did instead was more of what's called a Wizard of Oz example, which is where you pretend it's a computer doing all the work, but behind the scenes it's a human being. So we had something that was basically kind of filling in a form for the information, and then behind the scenes we had half a dozen of us doing the phoning and shouting and nagging and clicking, filling in an Excel spreadsheet, automating some pre-rolls and throwing it back. So as far as they were concerned, it was a form and a computer. As far as behind the scenes were concerned, it was lots of humans. And they all loved it. They totally loved it. Can anyone guess what happened next? who hasn't heard me ramble about this before? After the first couple of times, the Sam type used the prototype. He gave it to his minion to do instead, because his PA, or assistant, whatever the level of that relation was called, could do the work. Sam no longer needed his super shouting powers of "I'm the vice president, you will goddamn law we give you this information now," because it just happened. He could go spend his time doing something else, and he could just say, Bob, fill this, get him to fill this form and send the spreadsheet when it's done. Okay, so this person became the primary user of the product. Okay, once this person started using the product, they loved it even more because they could start using it to manage up their pain in the arse boss and start getting some of this information a little bit earlier, which changed some of the features. Sam's people in other departments, as it were, started seeing this thing that Sam showed them and wanted a similar kind of thing for their management. So it went from being something that was targeted at a fairly high level, at one vertical slice of the organisation, to being a primary user that was a slightly lower level across a horizontal slice of the organisation. The product wasn't completely different, but it ended up having a very different focus and a very different user set, and providing a lot more value to the company. Because we carried on learning as we did this. We carried on talking to the users who were using the prototypes. We carried on gathering research. We started building up a persona of Pat at the same time as we started ignoring the persona of Sam as it became less and less important. So the process of doing the research became and was effectively much more iterative as we went on, which is turned into the thing that I'm now calling iterative persona, which is a bit of a rubbish name, and I've changed it at least twice, so I'm sorry about that. Which is kind of a three-step process. It's defining, getting a really initial rough sketch of the persona, refining, working to flesh that out iteratively with the whole team, and realigning, which is when we occasionally go back and revisit the bigger picture that we might have lost track of. I'll just talk about each of those briefly. Defining is the bit that user experience people make a little bit of money about. And I completely understand why, but it gets better, I promise. You'll get a group of people in a room who might not actually be the customers. Ideally we could get some customers in, but we get anyone who has kind of contact points with customers, product management, sales, marketing, whoever, the founders or whatever, if it's a startup. We get the dev team in, we get the designers in, everyone we can, but it's mostly about the company. Okay, and we do the standard exercises that people do for developing kind of prototypical persona sort of thing. So you have this stuff from Janice Fraser's data with Lean UX, the classic kind of 4-quadrant thing, where you're basically this is our best guess at the moment what the customer's like. You're just making stuff up. Okay, there's Daily Gray's empathy maps, which are another way to start talking about different aspects of the customer. Google this, basically you start thinking about what are our customers thinking and feeling, what they're seeing, what they're saying, doing, hearing, pain points, gain points. Another way of doing it is thinking about it in terms of continuums, the various different aspects that might be important to your customer. This is stuff from Cindy Alvarez's great book on lean customer development. These are a few attributes. Are our customers more decision makers or rule of followers? And you can start thinking about them in terms of attributes. You don't have to have just these attributes. You can come up with many other different kinds of attributes. But again, it is a way to talk about what our customers are about. Okay? And what we're focused on in this stage is not being right.